some people, you meet them and you want to be their friend forever. And forever was not as long as I needed it to be.
Welcome, world, to Nobody's a Nobody podcast with me, Mike McVeigh, the podcast where I talk to people that I find fascinating who might not be as well known as some celebrities or famous people, therefore they're nobodies, but nobody is a nobody. Today's guest is Joey Rodman, the Okie Space Queen herself. Tony Foster Jr. is the featured artist for Jarvik's Hot Dog Song of the Week, and our shout-out business of the week is Max Wings in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My friend Kimberly runs this place, and I was kind of afraid to step in, but then I had some of her golden hurricane wings, and oh my goodness, those were so good. My wife and daughter agreed, and on top of that, they also have some Oklahoma dry rub, and we had the regular honey barbecue. For those who desire a little more spice in their life, the honey sriracha seems to be one of the most popular products they have, so please be sure to check out Max Wings in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had the pleasure to get to talk to Kaylee Vaughn, the director of Our Neighborhood Empowered One Oklahoma City, and she has just a little message for us. One of the ways that I know that our family just started, I think last month or this month, is the coffee club. Can you talk about that for just a second?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. So the coffee club is just our way of small micro gifts that can make a big impact. So whether it's $5, $10, $25, $50, that is dollars a month. That getting more kids to come, getting that foundation of financial support coming in monthly. So a lot of people are like, well, I'd rather just give $60. Well, we'll take your money no matter how you want to give it. But when it is that consistent monthly income that we know we can get, it's a lot more sustainable and impactful. So that's kind of what the coffee club is for. So a financial giving, even $5 a month is huge. Our goal is to get $5 a month donors, and we're about at $175 a month. More money, the more impact. And so we love that.
So if you'd like to help some people out in need, check out oneokc.org. Our guest, Joey Rodman, and I had such a long interview that even after cutting out over 45 minutes of material, I still had too much for one episode. So we're going to do this a little bit differently. I will have the first major part of the interview today. We'll also have Jarvik's Hot Dog Song of the Week. And then on Wednesday or Thursday of this week, we'll have the rest of the interview plus the circuit breaker lockdown questions. There will be little introduction this week. Our guest is Joey Rodman, and we are jumping right into the interview. So hope you enjoy this episode as much as I had in interviewing.
My husband sometimes calls me a people collector because I will just make friends with anyone. I don't really care what I know about them. I will just try to kind of fill that out and see if we could be friends or not. So I kind of have these heart-wrenching stories of humanity all the time. I was in Walmart once, and I was going down the frozen food aisle, and there was a woman sitting on the floor crying. And people were like walking around her aggressively, like they thought, treating her like she was in the way. And she's like sitting there in the floor crying. And I'm like, why are you guys just stepping over her? You know? So I finally got through the traffic jam because she was right in the middle of the aisle. And I pushed my cart to the side because I'm not a big jerk. I'm just like a medium jerk. And I sat down in the middle of the aisle with her. And I said, are you okay? Are you hurt? And she said, not physically. And I said, okay, are your feelings hurt? Are you okay? Do you need help? Can I sit with you? And she said that she had just been to the doctor, and they had told her that she had cancer, that they had to do more tests before they staged it. And she was not expecting to hear that she had cancer. She knew that something was wrong, but she was hoping that wasn't it. And she said, I'm grocery shopping. I was going to go grocery shopping after my appointment, but I don't know what to get now. because I don't know if I'm going to die like this week.
Wow.
And I said, well, I hope that if you were going to die this week, they would have told you today. Um, but just in case, why don't we get some junk food for you to eat today? And then we'll go get canned goods. And that way, if you live for a long, long time, they'll still be good. And she started laughing. And but there was like a 10-second break between when I said that and when she started laughing. And I thought, maybe it's not a good time to be funny. Because I don't know this woman. I didn't even know her name. And so we sat there for a little bit laughing. And she said, wow, you're really morbid. And I'm like, I can be your morbid friend if you need a morbid friend. And she said, well, let's get up and I'll finish my shopping. And I said, do you need to shop with you? And she said, well, you got to do your shopping. And I was like, right. But I mean, I don't go to Walmart when I'm in a hurry. So I can do shopping with you and then I can get my shopping done too. And we did. And I kept touch with her. I gave her my email and my phone number. And she lived for about another year before she died.
Oh, wow.
And that was hard
Yeah.
because she was such a wonderful lady, and I didn't get to be her friend that long. It's just some people, you meet them and you want to be their friend forever. And forever was not as long as I needed it to be. I think that changed me a little bit. I was always really open to meeting new people, especially if they're very different than me, because I want to gather as many experiences as I can. I made a promise to myself that if I ever saw somebody upset, I would try to go see if they needed a friend. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they say, no, I'm fine, go away. And that's okay too, you know? But a lot of times people don't have in that moment the ability to cope with it alone. And so even if you're a stranger, if you're willing to just sit with them for a minute, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So I was working at a museum, and I was the lost kid finder. They had the ability to see from like 30 feet away if a kid was just, far from their parents and playing and fine, or if they were far from their parents and starting to panic. And I could catch them before they started crying. I can see that panic in their eyes.
Right.
And so I would, I'd walk by, and I'm in my uniform and everything. And I'm like, hey, buddy, where are your grown-ups at? And 9 times out of 10, they would say, I don't know where my grown-ups are at. And I said, that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to call the security guard, and we're going to tell them what your grown-up looks like. And they're going to go find them, and you and I are going to sit here, and we're not going to move, and we're going to get your grown-ups back. And so I did that for a while, and then that wasn't my job at the museum. That was just my talent as a people collector. Then I went to work at the college, and I was working in the STEM lab with students who got into community college, but usually came from backgrounds where they needed remedial help. And a lot of them, it's their first generation to go to college. Their parents don't really know how the bureaucracy works. They've never really had homework. They've never had to study. They're trying to do better, but they're overwhelmed.
Right.
And so I would go, I'm supposed to be tutoring them. And I would have these kids that were in intro to calculus. And I would figure out pretty quick that they didn't really understand how to multiply and divide.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to discreetly help them get caught up so that they don't fail this class. But I'm trying to do it in a way that all the other kids in the lab aren't seeing. Because as hard as it is to be kind of the odd kid out who feels like you don't belong in the college, who's overwhelmed, who's working 2 jobs and going to school full time, who doesn't know the right things to say or what to do if you have a problem with your professor, or how to navigate if you can't afford your tuition and you need to drop a class. That all I felt like was hard enough without their peers knowing that, you know, they came from a high school. I had one kid who came from a high school. They didn't have algebra books at his school. His teacher would just print out worksheets from online to give to them. But none of the worksheets would have, like in a textbook, you have examples and they show you how to do it and they explain. Worksheets wouldn't have that. And the teacher was an emergency certified teacher who had never taken algebra. And so that's what they were coming out of trying to go to college.
Oh, wow.
A situation where they've gotten straight A's, but nobody actually paid attention to see if they knew what they were doing. And so that was really heartbreaking a lot of the time. I would have, you know, single dad. He's got one kid, his girlfriend left or died or, you know, moved or whatever. And he's working 2 jobs and trying to raise a toddler and trying to make it through intro to calculus, and he doesn't have basic math skills. I mean, that was kind of heartbreaking for me. They were trying so hard, and I felt like there was nobody else there that would help them. I didn't mean for this to be sad.
No, it's not. I actually find it very, I don't know what the right word, brave doesn't seem to capture it very well, but to have that kind of empathy for people, is that something that you just always have had, or is that something that you've learned over time?
No, I mean, growing up, I really didn't like people. And still a lot of the time I get really frustrated with them. I was kind of a shy kid in school. I was an introvert. I didn't really have any friends, and I didn't really want any. I just felt like people kind of weren't worth the effort. And I figured out at one point, if I wanted to have the job that I wanted to have when I grew up, I needed to learn, at least while I was at work, to fake being an extrovert. Like, fake it till you make it. And so I did that for a few years, and it turns out that fake extroverts can totally be popular and make friends.
Absolutely, they can.
And the more I was around people, and the more I realized that we are all a little bit the same on the inside. We all have anxiety. We all worry about if we're good at our jobs or not. We all think somebody else is smarter, somebody else is braver, somebody else is prettier, somebody else is stronger, somebody else is, you know, whatever we're insecure about, we decide never to have that much criticism for someone else, right? We treat ourselves the worst. And so once I realized, like, everyone else is out here trying to be something they're not to get something they want. And I thought, wow, I wonder how many of the people that I encounter feel like I do. And so I started asking them. You know, I would start to pick up on these little things. And I asked one of my coworkers at the museum once, I said, "Are you feeling anxious today?" And she said, "Yeah, I feel really anxious today. I keep feeling like I'm going to cry." And I said, "Okay, well, do you need me to do anything? Can I go get you water? Do you want me to take over your work for a little bit to let you, like, calm down? Do you want me to go with you? Do you want to eat lunch together? Like, what would help you out?" And she said, "Really nothing, but the fact that you know now makes me feel safe to come to you later in case it gets worse." And I said, well, of course you can come to me later if it gets worse. And she said, well, how did you know that I felt anxious? And I said, because you look like I do when I feel anxious. And if I was feeling that way, I would be afraid to let anyone know, because we build up these little walls of, I'm cool, I got it under control, I don't actually have any negative feelings, I'm just super happy. And I said, so then when you tell someone, hey, I'm having a little bit of anxiety today, then you feel like they're going to look at you differently.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're going to think, oh, wow, she's anxious today. So that gives me an edge and I can just be more gregarious. And then she's going to not get a raise and I'm going to get a raise. And she said, I wasn't worried about that, but now I am.
Right.
And I said, oh, well, I don't want a raise. So we'll be good.
For all the wonderful people that don't know you yet, your future friends, that will be fake for you. If what would be the one thing that you would want everybody to know about you? Like if they could only know one thing about you, what would you want them to know about you?
Mostly that I'm trying my best. I think a lot of times my sense of humor does come across kind of biting.
Which we enjoy.
I really don't mean it that way. And as soon as people get to know me, they understand that my commentary is more directed at the absurdity of the situations we get in and less towards them. I had somebody at the college once that was trying to find the lab. And she said, oh, I'm at this building. How do I get to you? And I said, okay, walk north. And then we're on the east side of that building, like we're the east door. And she said, is that left or right? And I said, which way are you facing? And she said, forward. And I was like, okay, so we're going to back up because that answer was not good for me.
Right.
And my boss can only hear one side of the phone call. And she's waving her hands. She's like, Joey, stop. Who are you talking to? Who did you say that to? And I'm like, we're fine. I finally got the girl over there, but my poor boss did not know me very well at that juncture of my career. And she thought, oh my gosh, we're all going to get fired.
Tell us a little bit about the different things that shaped your life for you to become who you are today. You can tell the drama, the fun, whatever, just in what's made you become Joey Rodman.
I've had kind of a journey. I grew up in Oklahoma, about half time in the city, half time out on the farm. I moved out from my parents' house when I was 15, and then I was homeless for about 18 months. And while I was homeless, I was working 2 jobs and going to high school. So I was working 35 hours a week and then trying to get through my junior and senior years of high school. At one of my jobs, I met this guy. He would come in every day, and I would always give him a free taco because, when you work in fast food, if there's one person that never screams at you, they become your bestie, right?
Absolutely.
Even when people would get his order wrong, he was just very mellow. He was like, hey, this is not how I ordered it. Can you guys fix it? Do I need to order another one? Like, what can we do? And I'm like, no, I'll fix it and I'll give you an extra taco. We're cool. And as he got to know me, he said, Joey, you're really funny. You should do stand-up comedy. And I said, okay. So I did that for a little bit. And then I met a girl who was going to clown college. And I did not know that clown college was real. I thought it was a joke. And then you think about it, like, clowning is a profession. So of course they have like a trade school.
Right.
And so I went to clown college, and then I came back, and I met my husband, which that's a whole weird story. And then, once we were married, I didn't want to do stand-up comedy anymore. I had a baby, and I was having another baby on the way, and I told him, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't want to do stand-up comedy anymore. I didn't like the culture. To be a woman, especially a young woman, especially not a hideously unattractive young woman, that culture is pretty toxic for a female comedian.
Can you go into a little bit about that? Because I am actually really curious about that.
Well, between the other male comics who think that women cannot be funny, or who feel like we're infiltrating, or who feel like we are dampening their style because there's certain jokes that we didn't laugh at because they weren't funny. Between that and between other women comics who saw that we were in competition with each other and decided to be kind of backbitey about it, like that half is pretty bad. A lot of the male comics will harass you. They have pretty big ego, and they get these, women that come up after the show that are pretty enamored with them. And it makes them believe that everyone has a crush on them. And so they treat you like they have something to offer that you want, when really they don't. And they don't take rejection well, like at all. And then I was a stand-up comic in Oklahoma.
Right.
I'm not conservative, so my humor is not what a lot of the people expected. And so men would try to heckle me. I got pretty good at making them cry. I made about probably 8 or 10 men break down in tears, cry, because I was so mean to them, which upset the other male comics.
Really?
They were like, why were you so mean? And I'm like, because I wanted him to shut up. Like, I'm on the stage. It's my show. It's not his show. He's interrupting me. It's rude. And the best, quickest way to get them to stop is to thoroughly embarrass them. And I got really good at that. Now, this was back in the time where I didn't like people, right?
Yeah, I can imagine.
I didn't really care. But I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to be a birthday clown. I was a circus clown. But I didn't want to travel with the circus because I want to spend time with my husband and my kids.
Right.
And so I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And he said, well, you can do whatever you want. You're an adult, right? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, what did you want to do when you were a little kid? And I said, oh, I'm going to work in the planetarium. He goes, well, why don't you just go work in the planetarium then? I was like, okay, I'm going to go apply and be like, hi, my name's Joey, high school graduate, stand-up comedian. I can make men cry. Used to be a circus clown. Please let me in this academic setting.
Can I hire you right now?
Yeah, like, please let me be in this science career. And he was like, yeah, go do it. He was like, what are they going to say? No. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I went and applied. They were like, you can't work in the planetarium. You don't have any astronomy education. You've never been a public speaker. And I'm like, that's not true. I was a stand-up comedian. That's public speaking.
Yeah, definitely.
And they said, well, why don't you come work at the museum and kind of learn the culture? Maybe there's something else in the museum you would be good at. I thought, okay, yeah, maybe. And so then they didn't call me back for a second interview for 2 years. And so I'd gone home and thought, wow, I really didn't do that good. And at that time, there were only 2 planetariums in the state. There was one that I bombed an interview at. And then there was one that they did not hire, for lack of a better word, like lay people at. Like you had to be a legit master's degree astronomer
Gotcha.
guy. So I was like, okay, well, I will find something else to do. I started writing. I got really good at writing. And then the museum called back and they said, hey, do you want to come in and interview again? We have new management and some new stuff going on. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll go in. So I go in. They said, if you could work anywhere in the museum, where would you want to work? And I said, I want to work in the planetarium. And they said, no. And I was like, I want to work wherever you let me. And they were like, okay, good. And so I did that. And I worked at the museum. And for the first year and a half of the museum, I went to the planetarium every day and I asked the planetarium director, do you need a part-time person? Do you need a weekend person? Do you need somebody to learn how to do it and then I'll never work it unless you all get the flu? Like, do you need me? And he would say no. Like every day for a year and a half, almost 2 years. One day we got company-wide email and I had it on my cell phone pinged and it said, now hiring weekend person in planetarium. And so I stopped what I was doing, I replied to the email, and I said, let me come interview. Let me come do a practice show. I learned everything that you wanted me to learn. Let me come try it. And he said, do you know that I sent this email out 45 seconds ago and you already replied? And I said, yeah, I want to come work in the planetarium. And he said, okay. And so then I did that for about 5 years. And I left the planetarium, went and worked in the college, and I left the college, and now I have my own planetarium. It's portable. I take it around all over rural Oklahoma. I traveled 40,000 miles last year just in Oklahoma. Wow. Just driving around these little small towns, taking planetarium out to see them. So that was my gig. Schools are shut down for the summer now, which is a regular break, but they got shut down pretty early into the second semester last year. And now people are talking about how maybe we're not going to go back. I'll figure out what to do with this planetarium. I really will.
So I've got a couple questions about that because I was definitely going to bring that up. How much does it cost for a school or a group to have you out to do planetarium type stuff?
It really depends. Usually, if I can get a school that's got 300 kids, then I'll charge, between $1 and $3 a kid, depending on how far away the school is. And that actually ends up being way cheaper for the school because they're not having to pay for a bus to go anywhere. They're not having to pay admission to the zoo or a museum or something. They don't have to get any parent chaperones, and they don't miss very much instructional time. Because I have it scheduled out, so each class can do their regular school day up until their time to schedule, come out, do the planetarium show, go back to class and do their regular school day for the rest of the day. I can usually get through about 800 students a day.
Wow.
Just taking them class by class.
How big is the portable planetarium?
It is 5 meters in diameter. So typically I can fit about 25 kids in there. And everybody has room to kind of lay back and lounge and relax and be surrounded 360 degrees with the night sky. With social distancing, even I could probably fit about 15 in there and still have a good social distance between them.
So this is something that could probably fit in a gymnasium or cafeteria for most schools?
Yeah, most schools, they'll have me in the gym. For really small towns, they don't have a gym at the elementary school. So I either go do it at their high school if it's not basketball season, or a lot of times churches will have a gym in these really small towns.
Right.
And I'll go set up at the church or at the YMCA. The dome I have now says that you can use it outside, but I have never done that because it is very windy in Oklahoma. And my dome is basically like a bounce house you can't bounce in. It's inflatable, and so it could definitely catch the wind and blow away.
Does that make it difficult for big kids like me who see a basically a bouncy house? Like, do you have to tell adults like, please quit bouncing on my planetarium or anything?
No, little kids, like the littlest, tiniest kids, are always scared to come in because the doorway is such that when you go through one part, it closes behind you before you can open the other part to get in. And so it gets dark for a minute. So these kids can already see that that's what's going to happen when they walk in the gym. There's this huge black dome with this weird long doorway. And their teacher's like, we're going to go to space. And the kids are like, I don't want to go to space. But once I get them in there, they're usually okay. High school kids feel like they're over it. They kind of mess around a lot more than the little kids do. But I haven't had any real trouble. One of the things about my planetarium that's not true of any of the other planetariums I've been to is my shows are closed captioned. So if people have a hearing impairment, everything I'm saying goes up on the sky in text so that they could read it.
Oh, wow.
My portable planetarium is also handicap accessible. So if you have kids that are in wheelchairs or use a walker or something, there's a way for them to get into my planetarium and out of it without having to go in the hallway. And those things are really important to me. I don't want any kid to know that the planetarium's at their school that day and think that they can't go. And as beautiful as the night sky is and as interesting as my show is, it's half astronomy and half stand-up comedy. So if you have a kid that's deaf, they're missing a good portion of the show unless you caption it.
Right. Yeah. Do they ever start laughing like a few seconds after you're on to your next part because of the spacing between when you tell the joke? And
They do. Which gets the other kids laughing again because and the feel is that the other kids are like, I'm so glad you also got the joke. And then they're like, oh yeah, the joke. And then they laugh again. So I have these times where I'm like, guys, I need you to stop laughing for a minute because we only got 10 minutes left and I want to take you to Mars. So we gotta simmer down for a minute. I have a lot of kids that are just, they'll hear the joke and it'll take them longer to process it.
right.
And then so I'll be moved on to something else and this other kid will be like, it's funny because horses don't roller skate. I guess that was why it was funny.
Which makes it even better for you because you don't have to explain the joke, so you don't lose the humor, but someone else explains it, so therefore it's okay.
Exactly.
What is your overall interest in planetarium? Because you said that's something that you wanted to do as a kid, and then you literally, persevered day after day to bother the people at the museum until you finally got your chance. What's it about the planetarium that you love so much?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I think I grew up at the prime time to be a little girl interested in space. When I was in second grade, there was a partial solar eclipse, and we got to see it at school.
Mm-hmm.
That was also the year that Sally Ride went to space. And I remember I grew up in a really strict religious household to the point where women were not supposed to have jobs. We were supposed to just stay home. And I remember thinking, if I ever sin really big and doom myself, I'm definitely going to get a space job. Like that was my, as a little kid, like I didn't realize that once you were an adult, you could do whatever you wanted, even if your parents didn't want you to.
Yeah.
So I was still thinking, like, I'm not going to disrespect my parents. I'm not going to go against my dad's wishes and be a career woman. But if something happens and I make a really big mistake, one of those that you cannot take back, and I'm going to go to hell anyway, I'm going to get a space job.
So is that what happened? Is that why you got a space job?
No, I mean, I've made a lot of boo-boos, but none that I feel are unforgivable. Most of the time I've made them because I'm a flawed human being,
Right.
and not like out of malice. Like I didn't do bad things that I knew were bad. I did dumb things that I realized afterwards were not great. So in my mind, if your intent wasn't horrible and you promised never to do it again, you should be okay. But if your intent is bad, then you're into a whole nother like realm of like, how do I undo that? Right?
Right.
The other thing that made me kind of be drawn to the planetarium, when I was a stand-up comedian, I realized I really do like making people laugh. And when I was a stand-up comedian, I was making people laugh just with words, right? You stand up there, you have your voice and your facial expressions, and that's it. Then I went to clown college and I learned how to do physical humor. So I had my words, my facial expressions, and then like slapstick comedy.
Right.
And I'm always looking for something way harder, right? Way harder than what I did before. And so I've been to like a million super boring planetarium shows. And I thought, I wonder if I just study real hard and learn all the astronomy and take a bunch of classes, if I can blend that with comedy. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be the hardest comedy show ever. You're in the dark, so they can't see you. All they can do is hear you. And they're not expecting for you to make jokes. They're expecting to go in there and for it to be monotone, super boring, fact heavy. And I thought, I wonder if I could really like ruin people's day. You know, like, and not in a bad way.
Right.
But just, you know, people want to know what to expect and they want to know what's going to happen. And so they think, okay, I've been in the museum all day. My feet hurt. I'm tired. The kids are starting to drive me bananas. Let's go sit in this quiet, dark room with a boring person and maybe the child will fall asleep and then I can carry them out and we can go home.
Right.
And I've had parents tell me this after the show, that this was their plan and I ruined it. Because the kids got in there and then they're like laughing, we're playing. Little kids will heckle me and I will play along with it because it's funny.
You don't make them go crying or anything?
No. No, they're little kids and they're curious about science. I want them to have like the best time they've ever had in their life. And so I would do that. And the parents would say, you've got them all riled up. Now they want to go home. They want to stay up late. They want to look for the planet you told them how to find. They want to get a telescope. They want to be an astronaut. Like they're never going to go to sleep again. And I'm like, that's awesome. And the parents are like, not awesome.
Yeah. How dare you teach them science at a museum and a science type thing and they want to be all sciencey all of a sudden or something.
Yeah. And I think the greatest thing is these little kids would come back to the museum and they would tell me, I went outside when you said, and the moon was there. Like you said, I saw the moon and it was just like you said it would be. It was a half moon, the exact same way you said. And so then that built a rapport with them because they're used to adults not telling them the whole truth. Right?
Right.
So then they found one adult who told them, if you go out tonight at 9 p.m., you'll see a half moon, and right next to it's going to be a red dot, and that's the planet Mars. And if you go out tomorrow night, you're going to see the moon, and it's going to look like a banana. And then you're going to see Mars, and it's going to be on this side of the moon now, and it's going to be further, but you got to go out right at this time. And they do that for 2 or 3 days, and I drag their parents back to the planetarium. They're like, no, it was just like you said, you're magic. Like, well, not magic, but I'll tell you how I knew how it would be. And then they're super interested. So that was really fun. I got a lot of thank you notes from grandparents who would bring their kids to the museum, their grandkids, and they're staying at grandma's for the weekend so the parents can have date night.
Right.
And she, take them Saturday afternoon, and Saturday night, grandma and the grandkids go out in the backyard and look up at the sky. And I got so many heartfelt thank you notes from grandparents saying, this is the funnest I've had with my grandkids in a long time. We weren't on the TV. Nobody had their cell phone out. We were just talking about the night sky and spending time with each other. And I got to tell them about how when I was growing up and what I used to do with my parents when we would look at the night sky.
Right.
And that, I really love it, that planetarium would hold 120 people. And I would never know who was in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had them for 45 minutes. And then a week later, I would find out I made a connection. And it's almost addictive.
I know this is one of the nicknames you have, or at least a nickname that you probably don't mind being called, because you have made a Facebook page of it, and I think you have a website as well, but the Okie Space Queen.
Yeah.
How'd you come up about that name?
When I finally got on as a weekend person at the museum, in the planetarium, the planetarium director said, one of the things when you work in one of the shows, not just out on the floor being a docent, you get to pick your own job title.
Really?
And so he was something wizard. I can't remember his job title. The other woman that worked there with me was the master of the universe. And oh gosh, I spent a week and a half in training trying to think of a really cool job title. I thought they should have warned me. I could have been, this whole 2 years that I'm trying to get you guys to let me work in the planetarium, you could have been letting me think. And so I went to him one day and I was like, I can't really think of one. Can you just make me planetarium educator and I can choose later? And he goes, well, it doesn't have to be something serious, and it doesn't have to be, the other woman that I worked with, she was the cosmic mastermind. He said it doesn't have to be something like that. It can be silly. You could be Space Queen. And I thought, oh, I can't be Space Queen. Then he goes, why? And I said, because I am Space Queen. He goes, what do you mean? I was like, I think I've been this since I was born. And he was like, yeah, okay.
That is definitely not how I was expecting that to come about. Now, I know you had been doing it, and then COVID kind of got in the way a little bit, but you were sending out a monthly newsletter, e-newsletter, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm going to start that up again soon. I kind of, when I realized we were going to be shut down for COVID for a long time, not a couple of weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, wow, I need money. And so I started writing again. And I just kind of fell into that and got distracted.
I hope you have really enjoyed this interview so far. We will continue it later this week. But for now, we will go to Hot Dog.
Hot Dog. Hot Dog. Hot Dog. Hot Dog. Hot Dog.
Hey listeners, it's Jarvix again with my hot dog song of the week. This episode, I'm bringing you one of the heavy hitters of Oklahoma City, Tony Foster Jr. Back when I was just getting started in the music scene here, Tony was well into his career, releasing music and even making an appearance on American Idol. These days, he's one of our cornerstones of contemporary R&B, bringing elements of soul, jazz, hip-hop, and gospel into a slick, modern neo-soul sound. With a band, he puts on one of the best live performances I've seen around here, whether local or touring. The track I'll be playing is a new single called I Need You, featuring Sid Carter and Candace Duke. If you're big on smooth vocals, this one's for you. These three are a powerhouse together, but they do scale back a little on this song to make room for the relaxed, atmospheric, and hopeful vibe of the song. If you dig the track, make sure to also check out an album that Tony Foster released earlier this year called Kaleidoscope. It's really good. Well, it's getting hot out there, both in weather and current events, so if you need some cooling off and recentering, this should do the trick. Here is I Need You by Tony Foster featuring Sid Carter and Candace Duke.
Let me set the record straight, get this out the way. I've been on my knees every single day, hoping I could find you, meet you face to face. If I get out of line, go and put me in my place. It's what you got me on, something like Tylenol. You take the pain away and I'ma tell it all. Throw me a microphone, I'ma stay in my lane. I can see myself giving you all my time, my time.
I won't let it pass me by. I won't take advantage. You always show me grace. You got what I need, so I'm always on the chase. You keep me coming back, ain't nothing but the facts. You got me hypnotized on my bed, I was blinded. Luckily you reminded me that you on the prize. I can see myself giving you all my time, my time.
Helpless. I don't think I even really know what to do. Lately been feeling reckless, so reckless. I don't never wanna let it break us in two. Fell for the lies, even then you stay true. You're the one I need, I'm a reflection of you. I can see me giving you all my time. It's divine, like it's unlimited to wine. Every sip got me inspired, I'm alive.
Thank you so much for listening to Nobody's a Nobody podcast. We loved having Joey on so much that we're going to continue the interview later this week. Please stay tuned for that episode. Thank you for Tony Foster Jr. and your amazing song. Thank you to Jarvix for presenting us that song. Check out Max Wings, 1okc.org. Check our show notes. We hope to see you later this week. And remember, no matter what your story, you are not a nobody.